this is Michelle with Wildflower Quilt Company. I am one of the owners. And today we're going to make a project, the Wildflower Quilt Company table runner, which we're using the fabric called Gilded by Moda. Let's get started. So today we are going to make our table runner, and right now you're going to need to select 4 different fabrics. This particular one, we have it at 1/3 yard, which I have already cut to 10.5 inches. Then you're going to need another complementary color, where you are going to need, according to our pattern, 1/8 yard, and from that I have cut into 2 1 1/4 pieces of fabric. Then for your outer, you would need, with the fabric, 2 3-inch pieces, and if you are wanting to select your own fabric, you could certainly do that to fit your decor at home. But this particular one, this outer piece, you're going to need 1/4 yard. And finally, the last piece that you would need to select would be your backing. And that's going to be 1/2 yard. It's going to be a little bit wider than your top to make it easy to be able to baste them all together or make your design. So let's get started in making our very easy table runner. First of all, you're going to need to have that 10.5 inch wide with the fabric focal piece, where then you're going to be putting your accent piece right next to it, and that would be on both sides. And then finally, you're going to have your outer border, which was that 3-inch. So it's a very simple, elegant pattern, very easy. Although this is what it looks like when you sew, you're going to do that 1/4 inch seam allowance, and you're going to need to pin it as you go. We don't want to stretch the fabric because otherwise you're going to get a ripple and it will not lay as nice. So then once they're sewn at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, whether your center is going to be white or dark, or light or dark, excuse me, you're going to want to press your seam to the dark side. So once we have our focal fabric and we have our inside border, our complementary one, you're going to want to sew it on there with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And you have a couple different options. You can pin them if you would like, so that everything is nice and flat, and when you put something on it, it's going to lay even. Or you can take your clips, whichever is going to be convenient for you, but we want to make sure that we get a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And on this particular one, since my inside is dark, or they're both dark, and they're not thin, I just pressed it to the outside. So after I have that pressed, I'm going to be taking my outer border, which is 3 inches wide, and I'm going to be doing the same thing, where I'm going to flip it over, and whether I pin or if I just use some clips, that's up to you. That's your choice. We're going to be sewing it in a 1/4 inch seam allowance, just like what we had done on our accent piece. And then we're going to iron it again, and on this one I'm going to iron it to the outside, where they're all my seams are going in the same direction, although that particular one does not matter as much. You just don't want to iron it to a light side. All right, after we had sewn the outside border to the inside border, which I do want to make one note, it's important that you line up your seam allowances. That way your accent pieces are going to be straight all of the way across. So now that we have our outside border sewn onto here, we're going to cut it, and this particular pattern calls that it's going to be 40.5 inches long, or as wide as the piece of fabric is. Now, if you have a longer table in your whatever location you're going to be putting this at, you can always add an additional length onto that. You just need to figure that you're going to need to have more fabric to accommodate that. So now that we have our top finished, we're going to layer our pieces together. You're going to lay your back fabric face down. You will take your batting now and you'll lay it on the top here. Now you can attach this any which way you would like. I personally like to use this 505 spray. It makes it easy so that it sticks all together when you're finally going to long arm it or whatever method that you would like. And then you're going to be putting the top on it, and it looks beautiful here. Make sure that the top covers the back so that you have it all together. And you can quilt it in any which way that you prefer. Now, keep in mind is when you're putting your batting down for a tablecloth, it's really nice to have a batting that is thin so that if you're putting something on it, it's not going to be tipping, and it's going to allow your things to stay straight. Example is a candle. We don't want it to fall over by accident. So this is our tablecloth that we had put all of the pieces together, and this would be the back on it. I simply did a cross stitch at an angle on here, and it looks beautiful. Since I didn't square it up before I did it, because it's helpful to have that little extra room to fudge on, now I'm going to need to make it as large as I can personally. Again, if you need to have a bigger piece, you can simply add some more pieces onto it and extend it. So the final step now, after you had it squared, would be to put your binding on. This binding is 2 1/4 inches wide, where on a typical quilt, you're looking at 2 1/2. This is a smaller project, so you're going to want to have your binding a little bit narrower. So you will sew your binding on, do a 1/4 inch seam, and go all the way around, and it's going to be great. So now that we have put our binding on, which is the narrow binding for a smaller project, you're going to be able to put this on your table and enjoy it for the holiday season. Thank you for watching our video today. Make sure you subscribe and give us a like on Facebook. Thanks.